When my niece smiled and accepted the gold bracelet I gave her, she unexpectedly revealed her heart. Mom said that my aunt didn't want a man, so she said she was a dink for the sake of face. It's okay not to have children. When my aunt dies, her house and money will belong to me. Auntie doesn't know yet. My mother adds ingredients to her milk every day. When will my aunt die and give me all the property? I was shocked when I heard this. I'm just a dink, not a fool who deserves to be calculated by you. Look at how good your aunt is to you, and you will have to give your aunt a pension in the future. At my niece Tiffany's birthday party, my sister-in-law stared at the gold bracelet I had prepared with bright eyes and pushed my niece over to receive the gift. When the niece thanked her sweetly. But I heard another immature voice, "Take care of you. When you get old, I will be the first to slap you." This is my niece's voice. I looked at my niece blankly. At this moment, she was obviously wearing a gold bracelet and acting coquettishly with me. Other relatives gathered around and praised me for mixing well, saying that I was rich and generous, and actually bought such an expensive gift for my niece. My sister-in-law held me. "We Claire are dink, we don't have to raise children, of course we have money." But at this time, my niece's voice came from my ears again. "What bullshit, dink. My mother said that no one looks down on my aunt, so I just said that I was a dink for the sake of face." But the niece didn't open her mouth at all, seeing that everyone looked normal. I suspect that I am the only one who hears my niece's voice. So I brought up this topic, and then deliberately hugged my niece and kissed her to tease her. My niece smiled and asked me to buy this and that for her. But she was so annoyed with me in her heart. But next year this woman should be dead. My aunt doesn't know yet. My mother adds ingredients to her milk every day. When my aunt dies, let alone the gold necklace, even her house belongs to me. I was shocked. Obviously, my sister-in-law's family and I have always had a good relationship. How could my niece, who has always been loved by me, suddenly want to curse me to death? While thinking, my sister-in-law brought another glass of milk. "You can't drink ice for the past 2 days. I specially asked the waiter to heat the milk for you." My sister-in-law diligently stuffed the cup into my hand. I noticed that my niece and sister-in-law looked expectantly, as if they were anxious to see me drink the milk. My inner alarm bells rang out. My sister-in-law, who usually seems to take good care of me. "Have you been poisoning me?" In order not to make them suspicious, I took a sip and stood up with a cup. "I'm going to say hello to my uncles over there, and I just happened to replace liquor with milk." I got up and left to greet other relatives. While no one was looking, I poured the milk into the trash can under the table. Other relatives began to urge marriage again. At this time, the sister-in-law brought her niece around. "Don't rush it. We Claire is dink. Even if we get married, we don't plan to have children. It's better not to get married." Everyone asked my sister-in-law, "What does dink mean?" My sister-in-law explained for me again. "I just don't want children for the rest of my life." Every time my sister-in-law took the initiative to mention it. As expected, everyone began to accuse me again, saying that I couldn't do without children, and that if young people were like me, humanity would become extinct. My sister-in-law, like before, began to relieve me very enthusiastically. It is said that dink is the choice of many young people now, and it is the trend of the future. He also said that Tiffany would provide for me in the future anyway, and it didn't matter if I didn't have children. "And don't worry about Claire's property being inherited, isn't there still Tiffany?" After saying that, he held me affectionately. "Claire, you can rest assured to be a dink, and our Tiffany will definitely provide for you in the future." Tiffany also said, "Aunt, I will definitely honor you in the future." But I clearly heard my niece mocking in her heart. "I don't want a bad woman that no one wants, so my aunt should die quickly." My heart is cold. I used to only think of my sister-in-law as loving me, so I always came forward to help me appease my troubled relatives. I realized it after hearing my niece's voice. My sister-in-law is likely deliberately brainwashing everyone to make everyone think that I will leave my property to Tiffany so that morality can kidnap me in the future. To validate your ideas. I pretended to say to my sister-in-law casually, "In fact, many dink will write a will in advance and donate their property to the welfare home, which can be regarded as making some contribution to society after death." I admire those people, and I have such plans in the future. The sister-in-law was really anxious when she heard this. She slapped my arm hard and grinned, "What nonsense, don't leave your property to your only niece but don't give it to someone you don't know, Claire, are you crazy?" I didn't expect my sister-in-law to be so impatient with the test. So I smiled slightly. "I'll just say casually, I have my own niece, and I must give priority to leaving it to Tiffany." The sister-in-law breathed a sigh of relief and began to hint again, "It's right to write a will early, your brother and I are already ready to make a will and leave everything to Tiffany in advance." Seeing my sister-in-law's face, I became more and more convinced that my sister-in-law really wanted to kill me quickly. Because I am determined to be a DINK, my parents and I have a bad relationship. On the contrary, my sister-in-law has always been very supportive of my decision. Offered to let me live with them, give me delicious food every day, and give me a kind of warmth of home. I am also very generous to my niece. All kinds of new clothes and nutritional products have not been broken, saying that he will take her out to play during the holidays and give expensive gold jewelry every year. I really regarded them as my closest people, and I really considered leaving my inheritance to Tiffany in the future. I also opened an account early and saved a sum of money in it every year, planning to save it up to help my niece study abroad. But I didn't expect that my sincerity was only exchanged for viciousness. In order to find conclusive evidence, I secretly placed an order for a wiretap. When I got home in the evening, my niece still brought me hot milk on time. "Auntie, go to bed early after drinking milk." But she was saying in her heart, "Drink more, the more you drink, the faster you will die, and I am still waiting to use your money to travel abroad." I smiled and patted her on the head and said to drink it before going to bed. The niece didn't think much about it and bounced away. I found a clean container, filled it with milk, and prepared to send it to a professional agency for inspection. The next day, I took out all the money I had saved for my niece and went to buy a limited edition bag that I had wanted for a long time but was reluctant to buy. When I got home, my sister-in-law looked at the big and small bags in my hand, and jumped in a hurry. "Why did you suddenly buy so many luxury goods? If you have the money, you might as well buy Tiffany a piano." Tiffany did mention that she wanted to learn piano, but her sister-in-law said it was too expensive, and then joked that unless her aunt paid for it. I have indeed made a lot of money doing investment and financial management in the past 2 years. I was willing to pay. Now I am only happy to give my sister-in-law a roll of eyes. "Sister-in-law, it's not illegal for me to spend my own money, right?" I took out a bag of 30,000 yuan and carried it on my body. "Anyway, I don't get married or have children, of course I want to enjoy it while I am young, and I should buy and spend it." I also deliberately scolded her with my sister-in-law's words. "Sister-in-law, didn't you say the same when you supported me DINK before?" The sister-in-law gritted her teeth in anger. At dinner in the evening, she began to be yin and yang. "Your aunt is now developed, and she only cares about her own pleasure, not her only niece. It's a pity that we Tiffany have always wanted to learn piano, but we can't even afford a decent piano." Although the niece was cooking, she didn't speak. But she had already scolded me in her heart. "The unlucky woman who doesn't want a man is quite smelly and beautiful, and she doesn't use it for me when she has money, it's disgusting." My brother also joined in. "Claire, what's the use of buying those bags? You don't fall in love, you don't need to spend so much money on yourself." Just by my brother's words, I made sure that my brother and sister-in-law were also in the same group. I smiled and gave my niece a piece of meat, and PUA my brother in reverse. "Brother, you can't even afford a piano after working for so many years, isn't it too much of a failure? And sister-in-law, you too, eat my brothers all day long. What does it look like to use my brothers? You should also go out to work and make money." The sister-in-law blushed. "Isn't this all about taking care of Tiffany?" I sighed. So in the final analysis, my brother is still incompetent, and he can't even afford to hire a nanny. Hearing that I was so mean, my sister-in-law was anxious. She threw her chopsticks. "You don't have a man and you don't have children. When you are old and disabled in the future, no one will take care of you. Don't you have to expect us Tiffany to go to the nursing home to see you?" When the niece heard this, she pretended to be obedient and pulled her sister-in-law's sleeves. "Mom, don't be angry with your aunt, my aunt just doesn't like me and doesn't buy me a piano. It's all my fault for not being likable." After saying that, his eyes actually burst into tears. In the past, I only thought that my niece was smart and clever, and she would definitely have a lot to do in the future. But I didn't expect her to become a scheming green tea at a young age. In order to get evidence, I won't turn against them for the time being. I took a step back. Actually, my recent investments have failed, I have lost a lot of money, and I am under a lot of pressure, so I went shopping to vent. I'm just Tiffany's niece, but as long as I have money, I will definitely be good to her. The sister-in-law's face eased. She began to hint again, although Dink is chic, he is old and has no guarantee. Do you want to consider accepting our Tiffany as a goddaughter? This will also prevent any messy relatives from coming out to rob your house in the future. I perfunctorily said that I would consider it. After confirming that my brother and sister-in-law were not good things, I installed the wiretap under their beds. After waiting for 2 days, the milk test report also came out. My sister-in-law actually secretly added excess estrogen to my milk every day. My recent endocrine disorders, poor sleep, and inexplicable gaining weight have finally been answered. The doctor I consulted told me long-term overdose of this estrogen can greatly induce various cancers such as breast cancer. I am planning to gather more evidence. When I got home, my parents were invited by my sister-in-law. As soon as he saw me, my dad criticized me. If you don't fall in love, don't get married, don't have children, and waste all day long, what do you look like? Our family's face has been lost by you. After my dad finished scolding, my mother spoke seriously. I advise you to listen to your sister-in-law and recognize Tiffany as your goddaughter as soon as possible, so that no one will help you collect the body when you die at home in the future. After my mother finished speaking, she looked at her sister-in-law. As soon as the words fell, my niece also threw herself into my mother's arms. Grandma, doesn't my aunt hate me very much, so she refuses to recognize me as a goddaughter? My aunt would rather buy a bag herself than buy me a piano, woo-woo. The sister-in-law sang and harmonized with her niece. Aunt is just your niece, how could she not like you? Claire, you're right. After saying that, she pretended to care again. You think Tiffany is a goddaughter, Bailey, and it's harmless, we will only kiss each other. In the future, Tiffany will not call you aunt, but will call you godmother instead, so that you can provide multiple guarantees for your future retirement. Seeing my sister-in-law so impatient, in order to prompt her to show her true face faster, I didn't disobey my parents and quarrel with them like I used to. Instead, he smiled and said, "It's not that I don't like Tiffany, but I recently met a boy with very good conditions. The future is still very long. What if I get married and have children in the future? These things are not in a hurry to decide, we will discuss them later." Mom and Dad's eyes lit up instantly. Are you ready to fall in love? My sister-in-law's face immediately darkened. Claire, why did you go back on your word? Didn't you say that you were determined not to have children? I also pretended to be green tea. Sister-in-law, you heard that I might fall in love, shouldn't you be happy for me? Why do you look disappointed? Could it be that you don't want me to fall in love and get married? In front of her parents, her sister-in-law couldn't say anything. The niece was also anxious. No, if my aunt falls in love and gets married, she won't be able to take my turn with so much money. Mom, can't you do it? Hurry up and kill this unlucky woman. I finished eating with my parents as if nothing had happened. In the evening, my brother's worries came from the wiretap. My sister won't really change her mind and fall in love and get married, right? In case she gets pregnant in the future, we have to find a way to get her to have a miscarriage. I didn't expect my brother to be so cruel to me. But the next sister-in-law's words were truly cold-blooded and vicious. Don't worry, I will never let Claire live until that time. I must get the money that belongs to us, Tiffany. I was terrified to save this recording. The next day, I announced to everyone, that boy and I are ready to confirm the relationship. He is very attentive and wants to meet my family first. My parents were very happy to hear the news and felt that I had finally figured it out. On the contrary, the sister-in-law is very irritable. She pretended to be concerned and tested me. Claire, you are a good dink, why do you suddenly want to get married again? Were you drugged by that man? Beware of being deceived by pig killing, there are many liars now. I replied to my sister-in-law, I'm also worried, so I'm going to take him home for you to inspect first. If you don't think it's okay, I have to consider it carefully. I have long spent money to hire special actors. I told the actor that he would not eat anything after entering the door, but only drink the drink I gave him. The actor was professional, and he dressed up like a man that day, and showed up with the gifts I bought. My parents were very polite and enthusiastic to him. It just so happened that my sister-in-law kept provoking her, is your company legal? It wouldn't be some shell company, would it? How can you not have a girlfriend under this condition? Why did you fall in love with our Claire? You love cleanliness so much, and you have a cleanliness fetish, can't you be gay? My parents criticized my sister-in-law, you are too offended when we meet for the first time. My sister-in-law muttered, saying that this was all for my own good. I smiled but said nothing. When I was eating, my sister-in-law poured me a drink again. I pushed the drink to the actor, I don't want to drink sweet today, give it to you. The actor drank half a glass in cooperation, and without moving his chopsticks, he chatted with my parents. When the time was almost up, I winked at the actor. The actor immediately covered his stomach and fell to the ground. My stomach hurts so much, what is added to this drink? It starts to hurt after drinking, am I going to die? I hurriedly screamed, how can a good person have a stomach ache? You obviously didn't eat. After I grabbed my hair and looked left and right and screamed like crazy, I pointed to the drink on the table in horror. He only drank the drink my sister-in-law poured for me from beginning to end. Sister-in-law, did you add something to this drink? While everyone didn't react, we put on a special show. The actor rolled on the ground with his stomach in his arms and shouted for help. I snatched the drink he was drinking and protected it tightly. Sister-in-law, although you have a problem with me falling in love, you can't poison it either. My sister-in-law and my brother looked at each other, and I guess I couldn't figure out whether I had poisoned them. After all, poisoning me every day has long been easy. The sister-in-law took a long time to react. Claire, why are you slandering me in such a way that you can't help but slander me? Can I be poisoned? What do I want? Mom and Dad, you judge. Claire, isn't she too unreasonable? She stepped forward to grab a drink, but I dodged her and took out her phone. I don't trust anyone now, I only trust the police. The scene was chaotic, and even the niece hid in the corner and muttered, my mother won't really poison on this occasion, right? It's too stupid. No, I want to protect my mother, and I can't let the police find that drink. Hear your niece's voice. I turned my head and saw my niece's eyes staring at me viciously. I didn't even think about going back to the room with a drink and locking the door. I don't want to talk to you until the police come. I know that my sister-in-law can't poison on such an important occasion. But I had already prepared estrogen myself and began to add ingredients to this drink. My sister-in-law went crazy and slammed the door outside. Claire, why are you crazy, and you still call the police for this little thing? Come out quickly, you don't care about your boyfriend? I refused to cooperate. Fortunately, within minutes, the police arrived quickly. I immediately rushed out of the room and handed the drink to the police. My boyfriend just drank this drink and got a stomach ache. Seeing this, my brother wanted to come forward to stop it. My sister's brain is not normal, this is all a family matter, so I don't need to bother the police comrades. The police fulfilled their duties, asked my brother to step back, and protected this cup of evidence for me. We will hand over the specific situation to professionals for investigation, and we will go to the hospital with you when the ambulance comes. When my parents saw that things were getting bigger, they also began to oppose me. Why did you really call the police? Is it shameful? This is your brother and your sister-in-law, how could they poison you? There were police officers present. I confidently took out my mobile phone and clicked on the recording, but I heard my sister-in-law say a few days ago that she would never let me live until I could get married. In front of the police, I played the creepy conversations between my sister-in-law and my brother. I passed by the door of my sister-in-law's room a few days ago and overheard their conversation. I didn't believe it at the time, I thought my sister-in-law was joking, but I didn't expect this to happen today. I cried to the police in tears. At the same time, he knelt down next to the actor and pretended to be pitiful. I don't understand what I did wrong. Why did my sister-in-law do such a poisonous thing to me? The sister-in-law was so guilty that she spoke incoherently, but she still had to be hard-mouthed. Don't talk nonsense in front of the police, we don't mean that at all. The police believe that the recording is of great importance. They immediately called a few more colleagues. After the actor was picked up by the ambulance, they briefly searched the scene. The wiretap has actually been removed by me. On the contrary, it was the sister-in-law, who never thought that things would be exposed. Several large boxes of estrogen placed on the bedside table were easily found. While we were still anxiously waiting for the results of the examination in the hospital, the police seriously informed them, "You are suspected of poisoning, please come with us." The sister-in-law jumped on the spot with a guilty conscience. "The test results haven't come out yet, why do you say I poisoned you?" My brother also wanted to disobey and refused to cooperate with the investigation. My parents didn't know why, but they blamed me first. "It's all your fault for calling the police. Look at how big you have been. Why don't you quickly explain to the police and apologize to your sister-in-law?" I pointed at my sister-in-law and sneered, "If you really haven't done anything wrong, then what's there to be afraid of? Will the police wrongfully accuse good people?" My sister-in-law was thick-skinned and directly morally kidnapped me. "We usually care about you and you live, and we are so good to you, but you frame your brother and sister-in-law." After saying that, she was still making a fuss in the hospital, pointing at me and preaching. Let's take a look, this is the so-called DINK. DINK is the same as her, a selfish white-eyed wolf in his bones. My sister-in-law shouted and took out her mobile phone to slap me in the face. "I want the whole world to know you, a hypocritical DINK girl, and I want you to be condemned by everyone." The sister-in-law jumped up and down like a monkey. The niece also came forward and pretended to hold her. "Mom, there may be a misunderstanding between you and your aunt, don't be like this." On the surface, he is very sensible. But in my heart, I was cheering for my sister-in-law. Mom did the right thing. Hurry up and let my aunt be cyberbullied and condemned. It's best to force her out of depression and jump off the building to commit suicide, so that I can successfully inherit all her property. Those newly bought bags are all mine. The police couldn't stand my sister-in-law's behavior and forcibly took her and my brother back to the police station. At this time, I took out the report given by the doctor and told the police. The doctor clearly stated that I have excessive estrogen intake, which will induce malignant cancer in the long run. The forensic results of that drink also came out. Although the actor's test results were fine, it was confirmed that a large amount of estrogen was artificially added to the drink. The police put all the evidence in front of the sister-in-law. Sister-in-law disagreed. I saw that Claire had irregular menstruation, so I listened to the folk remedies and used estrogen to condition her body. She didn't die or have an accident, why do you say I poisoned her? She also pointed at me very arrogantly. I want to sue you for spreading rumors and slandering you, and sue you for damaging my right to reputation. My brother also threatened me angrily. You must tell the police that it is a misunderstanding and let your sister-in-law go, otherwise I will not have you as a sister in the future. Even my parents said to my sister-in-law, your sister-in-law gave birth to a granddaughter for us anyway, unlike you who will only embarrass us. I am very grateful to my DINK for making me see the true face of my so-called family. I had expected this situation for a long time. So I sorted out all the evidence and posted a video on the internet with my backhand. Family, just because of me DINK, my sister-in-law's family wants to poison me so that I can defraud all my property. What should I do in the face of such vicious relatives? I told the whole story of how good I was to my niece, but my sister-in-law's family just wanted me to die quickly. The real sharing resonated with many DINK people. Everyone stood up one after another, saying that they were not understood by their families, ridiculed, and even targeted for property. We DINK are so miserable, even if we are excluded and discriminated against by society, in the end, we will be calculated by our relatives. We just made the choice we wanted to make, we didn't hurt anyone, please be more tolerant of us. Netizens are upset about me and come up with all kinds of ideas. There are also netizens who are lawyers who take the initiative to contact me, saying that they can help me fight a lawsuit, help me preserve all my property, etc. My brother and sister-in-law were also scolded by netizens. Even relatives contacted my parents. Claire is also your biological daughter, how can you help outsiders bully her? My parents saw that this matter was known to everyone, and they hated me even more. The ugliness of the family should not be publicized, and it is all because you have caused us to not be able to raise our heads. If you dare to put your sister-in-law in jail and let Tiffany lose her mother and be ridiculed, we will hate you for the rest of your life. Although I refused to agree with the understanding and asked the police to investigate to the end. But my parents-in-law, who are sisters-in-law, actually issued a letter of understanding, asking for big things to be small. They also accused me of being suspicious, saying that I had a conjecture. Although I was completely chilled by my parents. But I can finally tear my face with my family. In the end, because I had not been substantially harmed, my sister-in-law was only briefly detained. Parents also told their relatives, as long as this unfilial daughter does not apologize to her sister-in-law, you are not allowed to have any contact with her. I was happy and quiet, and turned around and bought a big house with the money left for my parents' pension. I thought that my sister-in-law would continue to provoke me and ruin DINK's reputation everywhere with the support of my parents. But I didn't expect it. On this day, my niece suddenly knocked on my door. Auntie, my mother knows that she is wrong, and she really wants to apologize to you. My niece pulled the corner of my clothes with tears in her eyes. For my sake, can you go to a meal and accept my mother's apology? The niece also poked her head and asked, Auntie, where is your boyfriend? I said that because of the last incident, people dumped me. I deliberately emphasized, my aunt is alone again now. The niece showed a very sinister expression, and then began to lobby for me to see my sister-in-law. However, the niece clearly said in her heart, I must help my mother trick this stupid woman. I believe that my mother will be able to get everything that belongs to us once and for all this time. If I hadn't heard my niece's voice, I'm afraid I'm going to take it seriously. In order to find out what kind of moth my sister-in-law wants to do this time, I pretended to reconcile with my niece. No matter what happens between me and your mother, you will always be my most beloved niece. Since you spoke, then I must be going. My niece happily pulled me out. I took care of it and immediately shared my itinerary with my lawyers and friends. At the same time, real-time positioning sharing is opened. My niece took me to a hotel. On the way, my niece said on the surface that she felt sorry for me. In fact, I had already secretly listened to my sister-in-law and my brother's plan. When I arrived at the hotel, all my relatives were present. When my sister-in-law saw me, she immediately held the microphone and burst into tears. Claire, sister-in-law is just worried about your pension, so she is a little eager and uses the wrong way. I hope you can forgive your sister-in-law. I believe that my sister-in-law has never thought of harming you. After she finished crying, my brother joined in. Finally, my parents came on stage and said, your brother and your sister-in-law have taken a step back. As long as you accept the apology, we will pretend that this did not happen. In the future, we will still be a family with Himai. Dare to make a special trip to kidnap me morally. The relatives below are also like rehearsals. Everyone gathered around and began to say a word, home and everything is prosperous. DINK just doesn't have children, but it's not that he doesn't want a family. Tiffany is your dependent no matter what. If this really falls out, you will only be lonely in the future. I followed everyone's words and took my seat. My sister-in-law came to toast me, you at will. After drinking, she also declared, there are so many people present today, everyone eats and drinks the same thing, you can rest assured to move your chopsticks, no one will harm you. I was pulled into my seat by my niece. My niece also stuffed me with candy. Auntie, I treat you to your favorite candy and apologize for my mother. Since I didn't fall out with my niece on the surface. My niece probably thought that I would spoil the candy she gave me as before. I peeled off the sugar paper in front of my niece and sent it to my mouth. In fact, he made a fake move and quietly hid the sugar in his palm. Then I picked up the cup and walked towards my sister-in-law. When pouring wine for himself first, and then pouring wine for his sister-in-law, he took the opportunity to throw the sugar in. The candy was abnormal and melted when it touched the water. I picked up 2 glasses of wine and shook them, and then pretended to hand them to my sister-in-law. I also toasted my sister-in-law for my ignorance in the past, and I caused you to be wronged. When my sister-in-law saw me putting on the set, she drank it all in one gulp. Then he began to pick up vegetables for me diligently. After eating for a while, the niece accidentally knocked over the soup bowl. All the soup and water were spilled on my body, making me a mess. I shouted in cooperation, "Oh, this is dirty, what should I do?" My sister-in-law looked like she was taking care of me very much, and pulled me up. "We are today's big customers, I'll ask the hotel to open a room and take you to clean it." She couldn't help but pull me away. Along the way, they kept asking me if I was dizzy, tired, and if I wanted to sleep. I pretend to be a little tired. However, as soon as she entered the elevator, her sister-in-law almost fell. She held her head. "Why am I groggy? So I want to sleep." I held her up and took the room card in her hand. "Maybe you're too tired during this time, let's sleep in the room together." My sister-in-law's legs went weak, and she gradually lost consciousness, and I helped her to the room. By the time I left, my sister-in-law had already fallen asleep. I went to the bathroom for a long time, deliberately prolonged the time, and sent messages to my friends. When the time is almost up, I pack myself up and return to the dinner table. Seeing that I had returned safely, my niece was surprised. "Auntie, why are you back? What about my mother?" I pretended to be innocent. "Your mother just suddenly felt unwell and said she was dizzy, so I asked her to rest in the room." I also reassured my niece, "Your mother has been going through so many things lately, she is too tired, you can let her sleep for a while." My niece scolded me thousands of times in her heart, and her face was so red that she could only say, then I'll call my mother back." I grabbed her and insisted on accompanying her. "Your mother is not here, I have to take a good look at you." My niece was so angry that she scolded and insisted on getting rid of me. Seeing the 2 of us pulling and pulling, my relatives and my brother gathered around and asked what was going on. I immediately pulled my niece to the hotel room. "It's nothing, she misses her sister-in-law, and she wants someone to help her call her sister-in-law back." My niece dragged me desperately and didn't let me go. "Dad, don't go, I'll go." I suppressed her with all my might, and in turn invited my relatives. "Tiffany is so considerate, she is afraid of tired me and doesn't want me to run more." I covered my niece's mouth and kissed her head. "My aunt knows how good you are to your aunt, so my aunt can't let you run around alone. What if you get lost? If you are tired, you can also go to the room with me to rest for a while, and I will invite you to sing later." My niece was covered by me and forcibly dragged away. She wanted to cry without tears, and arrived at the door of the room with a panicked face. I took out my room card, swiped my card and reached out to turn on the light as soon as I entered the door. As soon as the lights came on, the big bed in the room appeared in front of everyone. And the sister-in-law who was not wearing clothes on the bed and another naked man had nowhere to hide. The man who was busy with his life was stunned when he saw so many people pouring in. While everyone was staying where they were, they didn't react. I was the first to rush to the edge of the bed and shouted, "Sister-in-law, you. How can you do such a thing behind my brother's back?" My voice made everyone cry back to their senses. The niece saw that things were self-defeating, and cried directly. My brother's face turned green, and he rushed up and grabbed the man. "Who are you? What are you and my wife doing?" The man hurriedly wrapped himself in a quilt, held his head and ran around, and asked me stupidly, "Is she your sister-in-law? So who are you?" Relatives began to point. "How can there be such a corrupt thing, and you actually have to take advantage of this time to have an affair?" My friends also arrived at this time. They took out their mobile phones and began to record this wonderful rape scene. The sister-in-law opened her eyes in a daze. I saw a lot of people surrounding her, and then I saw chaos at the scene. She hugged herself and cried. "What's going on? How could I be here? What happened?" My brother turned his head and scolded his sister-in-law. "You shameless slut, I'll settle the score with you later." Turning around, it was another fist output to the man. The man was beaten to the ground by my brother, and he shouted aggrievedly, "I still want to ask you what's going on. Didn't you say that I can sleep with your sister as long as I come in? Why did you end up lying in bed? Are you deliberately playing with me?" This statement came out. Everyone present was in an uproar. My friends reprimanded loudly, "You actually want to make people rape Claire, you are such a terrible poisonous woman. Call the police. This must be called the police, this is already a crime." Seeing this, the relatives really couldn't talk about peace. They pointed at their sister-in-law and accused her of doing too much. The sister-in-law covered her ears and collapsed and shouted, "Don't talk nonsense, you, me. That's not the case." I collapsed on the ground and asked pitifully, "Sister-in-law, it turns out that you asked Tiffany to give me candy and take me into the room, is it all a conspiracy? Do you want to give me to this man to ruin? Sister-in-law, you are so cruel. In fact, I have long known from my niece's voice. My sister-in-law is afraid that if I break off my relatives, I really won't have a chance to rob my property. So she spent money to find a distant relative in her village. Then asked my niece to cooperate in giving me medicine and stunned me. Let this distant relative put me to sleep. She also recorded the whole process in the room, ready to threaten me when the time came. As long as I make a will to give all the property to Tiffany, she can keep it a secret for me. Otherwise, even if I make a big fuss. So many people present proved that the food was okay, and the drug metabolized so quickly that I couldn't even say it clearly. It's a big fuss, and it's me who is embarrassed. As long as she worked hard, she could force me to commit suicide by collapse. She didn't expect that I would rely on my niece's voice and let her reap the consequences. The man was beaten by my brother with a blue nose and swollen face, and he couldn't fight back. Wait until the police station. In order to take revenge and make meritorious service, he truthfully recruited an affair with my sister-in-law. The matter has come to this point, under the persuasion of relatives. My parents finally admitted that my sister-in-law was a downright bad breed. But they even persuaded me rigidly, "You can't let Tiffany have a mother in prison at a young age, what will she do in the future? For Tiffany's sake, you can forgive your sister-in-law one more time, and the big deal is to let your brother divorce. Only I know that my niece and my brother can't escape the relationship." This time I made it clear that I would pursue it to the end. My brother couldn't accept his sister-in-law sleeping with someone else, so he made a fuss about divorce at the police station. My sister-in-law thought that her parents and my brother would support her. I saw my brother turn his face and refuse to recognize anyone. The already desperate sister-in-law also broke out, "I want to testify that he poisoned me with me, and he paid for all the excess estrogen before." Seeing the two stage a dog-eat-dog drama. I patted my dad on the shoulder, "Give birth to this kind of son, marry such a daughter-in-law, and have a bad child who will be poisoned at a young age, it is better not to give birth." I told them that in the future, all my inheritance would be donated to the welfare home. Now in the welfare home, there are hundreds of little angels who are willing to call me mom. As for them, let's live with such juniors for the rest of their lives. Leaving the police station, I boarded a cruise ship in style and began my luxury global journey. And what my sister-in-law did to me has been fermented on the internet for a long time, which has once again triggered people's discussion of DINK. A month later, the police contacted me. The previous poisoning case and this case have entered the formal process, and I will be required to appear as a witness in court. Those who murdered me will eventually be punished by the law. And my parents thought this matter was too embarrassing and didn't want to worry about it, so they took their niece to a very remote city. They left me a letter apologizing to me and asking me to ask them for help at any time if I needed it in the future. But I don't need these false family affections anymore. My independent and wonderful life really begins from this moment.